Welcome to Coast Connections. Tonight we'll be talking about foster parents and what you as a member of the public might be able to do to become a foster parent or to help the system. And with me today to discuss this topic is Diane Daigle from the Foster Parents Support Services Society and Suzanne Jones, who's from the provincial government. She's a social worker who works primarily with foster children. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, fostering children. Maybe I could ask you first, sure, Diane, about what does the Foster Parent Support Society do?
Oh, so you're wondering about supports to foster parents?
Yeah.
Foster Parent Support Services Society supports all foster parents on Vancouver Island. We have a coordinator in every community. We reach out and are accessible through our telephone line, email, our website, our Fostering Hope website, and our coordinators who work closely locally with support persons, caregiver support, behavior consultants, resource workers, and social workers to support foster families to provide best care to children. So we also have programs like the foster care education. We have a mentorship program, so we train foster parents to work with other foster parents so you're not fostering in isolation. We have a Safe Babies training program and ongoing support for caregivers who look after our most vulnerable infants. So we provide really cohesive supports and work closely with the social workers at the Ministry for Children and Families to ensure that our foster families are well supported and able to provide best care to the kids.
And this, I assume, is like an ongoing process that people aren't abandoned. Like, okay, we've gotten you regulated for a month. Now you're on your own.
No, absolutely. It's ongoing connection, constant connection, education, support, and networking.
Good, good.
Yeah.
Now, Suzanne, you're with the government. I guess the government is the one who gets involved in placing children.
Yes, we're involved in placing children, but we're also involved in supporting the placement and making sure that we match that placement really carefully with that family to make sure that we don't place someone in their home that isn't necessarily a fit, because we don't want our children to have ongoing transitions. They're already coming into care and that's a change for them, and we don't want them to have too many changes.
Okay. Is there a limit to the number of children that might end up in a foster home? In one single foster home, I mean.
With a family's own children, they can have up to 6 children in their care. So that would be the limit. Unless they're a higher, more specialized care home, then they would have less children because the needs of the children would be more.
Okay, so now I'm trying to think of how do kids come into care? If I don't know if there's a common denominator to it, or is it from all over the place?
It's a number of different ways. We provide services to children and youth with special needs. So some of those children with special higher needs, the family needs a break, so we may go into an agreement with that family for them to come into care. There may be an emergency with the family and they don't have that extended family or friends to care for that child safely, so we will go into a different type of agreement called a voluntary care agreement, or we may have protection concerns and we would look to extended family, people who have a connection to that child already, but if we can't find that person and we need that child to be in a safe place, we will bring them into care through our court system as well. Okay,
so that you get, say, let me think, say there's a family of 3 kids who suddenly find themselves parentless, through, say, accident or something. Would those 3 children try to be placed together, or would there be separation amongst them?
Depending on the availability of a home and capacity of a home, it is our standard and our policy to place siblings together. So we would make every concerted effort to do that.
I'm glad you used that word sibling, because it was running in my head and I couldn't get it out my mouth. But now once they're in a foster setting, now your society comes along and says, okay, what can we do to assist? Do you provide any financial support, or does that come from the government?
Any financial supports for the children come from the Ministry for Children and Families. The role of foster parent support services is to provide support to the actual foster parents and to keep that home well supported. So we provide, we have a coordinator in each community, and we provide education, ongoing education throughout the year. We provide networking opportunities. We work together collaboratively with supports in the community and with the ministry to provide opportunities to celebrate children in care, opportunities for foster families to come together and have social events so that they are networked, relationship building, and able to support each other and be in community with like-minded people as well. So a lot of opportunities for education, particular to caring for children in care.
Like an example that comes to my mind is, now, if you can imagine me as a foster parent, okay,
right.
and I suddenly am now, I've gone through the process and I'm acceptable, and I get say a preteen, and I've never or haven't dealt with a preteen
right.
for ages. What would you be providing me some kind of assistance in getting, knowing about preteens, learning about them?
Absolutely. Child development is one of the educational topics that's provided for foster parents for children of any age. So one of the first things that a foster parent would do would be to take the BC Foster Care Education Program, and that's, I think, 53 or 56 hours of training to really prepare you for what it's like to live in the world of fostering and provide care to the kids. So that would be your first training opportunity, but training is expected and ongoing for foster parents, and it's provided. So you would have a lot of training, and you could come to me and say, well, this is my need. I need training on adolescent development, or I need information on a special need, and we would make sure that that information comes to you.
Yeah. The reason I think about that, because I mean, I obviously passed through the preteen stage, but when I pass through preteen stage is different than the kids who are passing through a preteen stage now. So, you know, that's, you know. Now, I was going to ask you, Suzanne, about the financial support and assistance that the provincial government might provide to these families.
Yes, when you come in as a regular foster home, we provide a family care rate of caring for our children, and for 0 to 11 it's $803.81, and for 12 to 19 it's $909.95. There are times when we know that children have higher needs and there's a specialized caregiver, so over time as people build skill set, they may move up in financial compensation.
Yeah, so like if there was a special needs child, for instance,
yes.
I guess there would be additional assistance and help with that.
There can be, yes.
Do they cover medical stuff too for these children?
Yes, medical and dental is covered for our children.
Yeah, because it's, I mean, I ask these questions because if I'm a viewer sitting out there listening, and then suddenly I ping and think, oh, you know, that might be of interest to me, but I really don't want to put myself into any kind of serious debt to be helpful, although I'd love to be helpful. So it's important that people know that there is that kind of assistance out there.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I wanted to know a little bit more about the government, because that, you know, okay, the money, that's one thing, you know, the selection of the kids, but is there any other programs or activity that the province specifically gets involved in with the children before they get into, you know, a placement?
Yes, we are really about least intrusive. It's our last resort when we become very intrusive and we remove that child from their home. So we would try to give additional supports to the family in order for them to manage and cope a bit better. So we might have a family support worker working with that family in order to reduce some of the risks that we might be seeing. So there's preventative measures that we will put in place and financially support in order for kids to stay in place.
Yeah. You know, I mentioned earlier before we came on camera about family find it. This is an expression I read somewhere about, and I wondered what that entailed. You know, something the government, I gather, undertakes to find relatives, or? Yes,
so when we are looking if it's looking like the child is going to have a longer term time in care, we will look extensively at the family history, who's in the family, who might be somebody that could care for this child, because we know it's really critical and imperative that our children are connected and attached to their family, and wherever possible that they remain living with a family member.
Right. Yeah, because I just, it's sort of like everybody's doing their DNA testing these days, and I just was curious as to, you know, when I read this family find thing, I didn't know whether you got information from family members that, oh, there's this person, uncles, great parent, grandparents, or whatnot. Anyhow, now this is, again, going to support after the fact, you know, okay, you've taken on the task of becoming a foster parent. And you mentioned it was like 50 some odd days of training, and is that the initial phase?
It's 56 hours.
Oh, hours, okay.
Hours, I think, but that's the initial foster care education program. Education's provided for foster parents on an ongoing basis. So, say for example, in our community, we would have 4 to 6 education sessions of different topics, whether that be attachment and trauma, or self-care, grief and loss. So all the kinds of things that maybe your kids might have experienced, because we know that understanding the children better provides more resilience to fostering the children and providing care for them and helping them.
Yeah, because this is the, you know, I mean, I'm in my mind, I'm trying to think of, I'm trying to put myself in a position of being, say, a foster parent, and I'm saying, well, okay, you know, I get 56 hours, that's kind of cool. Do you have like workshops or seminars that are provided on any kind of basis?
Absolutely, continuously, continuously throughout the year in all communities.
What kind of, would they be this matching the kind of things you get in the 56 hours?
Some of it is, and maybe expanding on some of the things about the world of fostering. So as you become a foster parent, one of the things you realize fairly quickly is that it's quite different from parenting your own children. Our kids come from maybe a different family environment, different kinds of foods, different things that they're used to. And so it's getting to know your child, but also understanding that you need to respond to them in a way that meets needs that you might not have expected. So yeah, it's different from parenting your own children.
Yeah, you know, and you, Suzanne, I was thinking that for something that interested me just a second ago is because my layman's impression of the government was quite negative, you know, seizing children and, you know, like ripping them away from the family hearth, if you like. But I think from what you're telling me, it's a lot more humane process than people like to believe, because you know, unfortunately, sometimes the government becomes the whipping horse of issues.
Yes. We have a continuum that we all work from, so we will do least intrusive, because at the end of the day, we know our children and youth, they love their family and they always go back and reconnect with their family. So we want to make sure that we are doing whatever possible, whenever possible, to make sure they stay connected to their family. Sometimes it's an unfortunate circumstance that brings them into care where we do have to take them out of the family and make that decision, but it's not one that's made lightly. So it's important for people to understand that when you want to look at fostering, we're looking to you, because you've become our last resort for the child having a safe zone. So it can be very heart-wrenching for everyone involved, and it's not just the children and youth that have the grief and loss or the experience, it's the whole family. So when you are fostering, you are connecting with the whole family. You're not necessarily fostering the parents, but there's feelings for them, right? And there's grief and loss as well, and it has an impact on our families.
Yeah. Well, I know, and I appreciate the role that the social workers play, because now there must be more than you in that department doing that.
Yes, there is.
So is it divided up regionally? Like you know, you seem to be on Vancouver Island.
Yes.
And are you alone in that?
No, there's about 9 other resource workers, and we do, a number of us do different age ranges, and some of us do what we call out of care. So we've been really focusing on placing our children with their family. So we have 3 out of care workers now, because we've gotten very good at that in the Nanaimo Ladysmith area. And my area covers from Ladysmith to the bridge side of Nanaimo. So just before the bridge going into Nanaimo. So we have quite a wide range. We also cover Gabriel Island. So there is a need in multiple communities for foster homes. And then there's Parksville and Port Alberni, and there's other regions that would be in need as well.
Yeah. Now, in this capacity, in this day and age, a lot of discussion about diversity. Do you try to place kids into the community that they come from, like First Nations, for instance, or, you know, in my case, would be a black family if there was such a thing. Is that considered?
Yes, always. We have the policy that we are trying to ensure that any Aboriginal child coming into care specifically as part of our legislation, we need to first and foremost look to their community. If we can't find somebody in their own community, we look for an Aboriginal family, and if we can't find an Aboriginal family, we find an Aboriginal connection person that will continue with the teachings, traditions, and ceremonies of that child.
Okay, so there's a liaison happening, and you know, see, I think that's important, you know, for people, because you might find a home that doesn't match the diversity of the child, but at least they know they're going to get, you know, the continued support, and not going to change them or try to divert them off of their own ethnicity, if you like.
Yes, and we have the Multicultural Society, so we can access different cultural requirements through connecting with the Multicultural Society and seeing if there's somebody that could be a key player, or give us some additional information, so that we're caring for that child in a really good way.
Yeah, no, that's important. As I sit and think about it, this is a big responsibility. You know, I mean, you know, these are, you know, we're talking about human beings here who find themselves in a situation I'm certain they weren't planning, and to pick up those pieces and try to make their life whole again, or as whole as possible. That's a big responsibility, and it seems like through your organization, Diane, you know, you're carrying a lot of activities for these people.
Absolutely. Foster Parent Support Services Society really recognizes the need to support foster homes. Yeah. Foster parents, they share their homes, their families, their lives, their energy and commitment and their hearts with these kids. And it's a lot of sharing, it's a lot of commitment, and it's only surpassed by the potential for a lot of reward. So it is really the opportunity to help a child. It does take a lot of commitment, it does take a lot of support for a foster home.
And so I guess you need, I think it was something I read in your materials about loving families. You know, like, I mean, it has, the atmosphere has to be attainable for the child to, you know, grow and develop. You don't want to suddenly, because they're going to have emotional problems. I mean, I had emotional problems, and I lived in my, I wasn't a foster kid.
Yes. It's kind of like what you were saying about matching culture, but it's also like if a child is a good fit for home, and again, what Suzanne was saying, we want to minimize transitions, but we also want that child to feel a sense of belonging and fit in the home, and feel that sense of felt safety and security that you can find in a home and in relationship with the people in the home. So that they feel that self-worth, and they feel that motivation to grow and be healthy, and, you know, heal from some of those things that might have brought them into care.
See, what I'm hoping that may result from our discussion today is that you're going to get your sort of phone rung off the hook by people who at least expressing an interest, whether they'll ultimately become a foster parent or would be even eligible. Yes. But there's things that I haven't touched on yet, but I think I should, because I was reading about, I was surprised to find out that you didn't have to be a homeowner.
No, you don't.
There's things like that you know, might deter people saying, well, I don't own my own home. So they could be a renter. Yes. And you could be a single person.
Yeah. Yes.
And that, you know, that sort of surprised me a little bit, because I thought, well, you know, when you talk family, I think of myself as being a bachelor. I never sort of thought of myself as a family, but I guess I could have been a family, I suppose. but it's those kinds of things. Are there any other points that maybe are myths or misconceptions that people might have?
Yes. with the not owning your own home, you can be a renter. You just need a letter of permission from your landlord to inform us that you've had a conversation with that person and that they're supporting you in fostering in their home. There's also, as you said, the single person. Single people with or without children can foster, and the families can foster, couples can foster. It's not, you have to be 19 years of age or older and have the ability to provide day-to-day care for a child and meet their needs and requirements. But it's very open to people exploring this, and it's not always long-term placement. There can be shorter-term placement available. So they might be not want a full-time child or youth placed in their home, but they can have a shorter term, like maybe a weekend, where they give somebody a break that needs a break, either a parent or a foster parent. Right. So there's shorter-term options as well.
Is there any statistics on like ages of children who are placed in foster care? You know, is there anything like, I don't know, like 1 to 5 or 6 to 10, or is there?
What we find is that we have quite a mix, and it tends to go in cycles. So not this past summer, the summer before, we had lots of need for baby homes.
Yeah.
And it was a crisis kind of situation because we had about 17 or 18 babies born in a short duration of time from June to September. So it really is, it kind of goes in cycles, and then we'll need homes for female youth. Will be okay for male youth, and then it'll switch. We need a number of male beds for youth, or it'll be school-age children. Most recently, it was our babies and toddlers, because our foster parent community in Nanaimo is aging, and as they age, they move up stages of children that they'll take. So they may take more of the school-age children versus the babies and toddlers because of all the lifting and the amount of stuff you have to take around with you and changing diapers and getting up at night. So that was an area that we had highlighted of needing children between the ages of 0 and 5. Right. It was, so we were having a number of sibling groups comes through that were younger, and we weren't able to find placements for them locally. Also, it's the female youth in our community. They're harder to place right now, and so it's opening up your home, and youth, there can be complexities with them. So I think that people sometimes have a fear of taking a female youth into their home.
Well, I know, thinking, again, if I'm using myself as an example, I think of myself as a teenager, and how my mother knew nothing. But when I got older, how smart she became in a short period of time. And, you know, kind of amazing how much education she developed in that period. Now, I was going to ask you, Dan, about with these you know, number of types of people you have to place. Like you say, okay, do you have a list like of potential people that have not become foster parents at this point, but maybe
are
would
interested?
Become? Yeah.
I think that a lot of people often think in the back of their mind, oh, I'd like to be a foster parent. And they might think this over the years. And I think if that's something that someone is thinking about, please check out the website. Find out what it really means to be a foster parent. Talk to any foster parents that you might know and ask, what's the world of fostering like? And is that something I'm prepared to do? And maybe call the fostering line that's on the screen and ask some questions. You know, just take that next step and see if that's something that they're prepared to do. Because I do think a lot of people say that to themselves, kind of even over the years. I wonder what it's like to foster. What a wonderful thing to do. And they're right, it's a wonderful thing to do.
See, they might be, I mean, they also could just register. I was thinking of a registry saying, you know, like, you know, I would be interested, but as you pointed out, Suzanne, there's times when there's emergencies.
Yes.
And if you had a list of saying, okay, this person is keen on handling young children, you know, or like babies, and or preteens, or, you know, teens, because I guess there's a point where they must foster out. Like you know, you can't keep them in a home forever. They've got to grow up and go out on their own.
Yeah.
Is that 20
19.
19?
They age out of care at 19, and so we're hoping that we're transitioning them out of care so that they're prepared. We also, I have been doing a recruitment campaign along with my team, and we have a prospective foster parent list that we've been maintaining. So somebody may phone and be interested or come to one of our information sessions, because every month we run an information session. We're not doing an information session till the new year, so it's a good time to call and find out more information, as Diane said, and get connected to an information session, because it really highlights what our needs are, what our expectations are, what the home study process is. So you come in a bit more prepared and what training is available to you.
Okay. Well, we've got about a minute and a half left of time, and is there anything that you can think of that you might like to let the people that are viewing this show know, or be important for them to get involved with, either one of you?
I would just like to say that fostering is a community, and it's a really special community. I feel really privileged to walk beside foster parents who are doing that great work. So I think that it's a community in its own, and it's a great place to be a part of. If someone's thinking about fostering, I do encourage them to get more information and find out what they need to know, if that's right for them and if that's a good fit for their lives, and can they share their world with a child.
Well, that's great. And for you, the viewing audience out there, here's your opportunity to find out about fostering, being a foster parent, and you've got all kinds of resources. And as been mentioned to you a few times, there's a website, and we'll put it on the screen, and you'll be able to contact Coast Connections and become a foster parent. That would be a great thing. Thanks very much for viewing.